It wasn't the scream that haunted Alex the most. It was the silence that followed. A silence so unnatural, so sudden, that it swallowed the entire lake in a single gulp. One moment there was laughter, water lapping against the wooden dock, the clink of wine glasses under the last gold streaks of dusk. And the next, a gaping void where Margot's voice used to be. Alex Beck, 29, leaned over the side of the weathered dock, his hands trembling. His head throbbed, a warm trickle of blood weaving past his ear and down his neck. He had only just regained consciousness, disoriented and with a metallic taste in his mouth. Margot was gone. Her sandals still lay neatly beside the towels, her phone face down in the grass. Nothing else. There was no splash, no struggle, just absence. In the beginning, they thought it was a tragic accident. A slip, a fall, a drowning, but the body didn't surface right away. And when it did, 3 days later, the lake gave back something no one could explain. Margot Beck had been beaten, strangled, and dumped like a broken toy. The autopsy revealed injuries inconsistent with a fall. The bruises on her arms suggested restraint. The ligature marks told of slow, deliberate violence. Someone had murdered her, and for reasons no one could understand. Alex became a suspect. The next 8 years were not years, they were a prison sentence without walls. Alex left the hospital with a up head and a hollow chest. The small town of Cormorant Hollow, where everyone had once known the Becks as the golden couple, the handsome young doctor and his charming wife, turned its eyes away. Some offered awkward condolences, others whispered. There were no charges, but the stain of suspicion clung to Alex like the lake's algae in late summer. Thick, suffocating, impossible to scrub clean. He didn't leave town. That's what surprised people. He stayed in the same cottage, kept his job at the clinic, and retreated from the world. The man who once hiked at sunrise and made pancakes every Sunday became a silent specter in his own life. What they didn't see was the guilt. It ate him from the inside. Alex couldn't remember the full night of Margot's death. The police told him he had likely suffered a concussion from the blow to the back of his head, which matched the blood on a nearby tree stump. But there was no weapon found, no sign of struggle, no DNA except Margot's and his, and no witnesses. I don't remember, he kept repeating to the detective. We were just swimming, laughing, and then nothing. He remembered her smiling. Her hair was wet and slicked back. She had just called him a dork for doing cannonballs. She kissed him. Then he turned to get the wine. A rustle, a crack, then blackness. Sometimes at night he imagined it differently, that he had stood there and watched her die, that he had frozen, that it was his fault because he hadn't protected her. Trauma did that, twisted memory, turned facts into fog. And in that fog, Alex had been drowning ever since. Margot's family stopped speaking to him. Her mother sent a letter once, carefully worded, but filled with contempt beneath the civility. We hope you find peace, whatever part you played in our daughter's death. Her brother tried to press charges, but the case was too cold, too vague. Eventually they withdrew. To Europe, to silence, to anywhere that wasn't Cormorant Hollow. But Alex stayed. He kept the wine glasses, washed the towels, tucked away the dried petals from her funeral roses in a drawer he couldn't open without crying. The lake, though, he never visited again. Not until the email. It arrived on a Wednesday, 8 years to the day. The subject line was blank. The sender, unknown. But the message was unmistakable. Alex, they lied to you. She's alive. Follow the dragonfly. He read it 5 times. Then a 6th. He stared at the screen as if willing it to vanish or explain itself, but it didn't. No attachments, no name, no link. And yet, something stirred. Hope? Fear? Madness? In the corner of his living room sat a framed photo of Margot. She was wearing his flannel, drinking coffee on their porch, sun in her eyes. On the table in front of her, a hand-painted mug, a dragonfly. Alex's pulse quickened. Was it a cruel joke? Some glitch? A spam email randomly colliding with the worst anniversary of his life? Or was it something worse? Something true? The police dismissed it, of course. Detective Nash, now grayer and less patient, told him plainly, "Look, Alex, someone's screwing with you. Happens all that I Pharaoh Weber, yeah. Around this area, you're Shrek and anniversaries? Maybe an old friend of hers trying to help by reopening wounds." But Alex couldn't stop thinking about it. The word dragonfly wasn't random. It was theirs. Margot loved them, collected trinkets with them, called them her tiny spies. It had been on her notebook, her necklace, her skin, a tattoo on her ankle. So when, 2 nights later, Alex found a small dragonfly pendant placed on his windshield, he stopped sleeping altogether. Someone wanted him to remember, or investigate, or unravel. And for the first time in 8 years, Alex realized he wanted to know the truth, no matter what it was. The footage wasn't clear, grainy, shadowed, shot from what looked like a gas station security camera in upstate Vermont, dated just 2 weeks prior. But the woman? Alex would have recognized her from any angle, in any lifetime. The way she walked, upright but fluid. The slight tilt of her head when she spoke, the wind-catching strands of her hair. Dark auburn with that impossible sheen Margot always cursed as too shiny to be taken seriously. He paused the video again. It was her, unless it wasn't. The email had come at 3:11 a.m., unsigned again. No subject, no sender. Just the footage embedded, autoplaying, with one line beneath it. Tell no one. They're watching. Alex's hands trembled as he clicked pause. He leaned back in the glow of the screen, heart thudding so hard it sounded like footsteps. The tiny dot on the video timeline blinked, demanding to be played again. He stared at it, thinking, this could ruin me, or save me. He couldn't breathe. Every cell in his body was screaming, demanding a reaction, but he was paralyzed. Margot, a lie. Maybe, and by 9 a.m., he was at the police station. Not to report the video. He didn't dare. The warning had burrowed deep into his mind like a splinter. They're watching. Instead, he sat in the waiting area, unsure why he'd come. Maybe to feel grounded. Maybe out of instinct. But then Detective Nash appeared, brow furrowed, like an omen. "Beck," he said, motioning Alex into a back room. "We need to talk." Officially. The walls closed in. A coffee-stained folder hit the desk with a dull thud. Nash opened it, flipping to a photo. "Recognize this?" It was the dock. The old crime scene. But newly unearthed, judging by the damp corner of the photo and the plastic evidence tag hanging off a clear bag. Inside the bag was something small, black, bent. A hair clip. Not just any hair clip. Margot's. Alex remembered the day he bought it. A little dragonfly made of silver and green glass. He'd given it to her in the car on the way to her sister's wedding. She'd cried. She never cried. This was found buried under a rotted tree root about 6 feet from where you were discovered unconscious, Nash said slowly. Just last week, someone reported erosion damage, and during cleanup, it surfaced. Alex stared at it, throat tightening. I thought they already combed that area. They did. Nash leaned forward. So either the techs missed it, or someone wanted it to be found. Either way, we're reopening the case. Something cold rippled through Alex's gut. "We've also had anonymous tips," Nash added, voice lower now. "People claiming you and Margot had a violent relationship, that you were controlling, jealous, that she was planning to leave you." Alex's head jerked up. "That's not true." Nash didn't blink. "Then why are they saying it?" That night, Alex couldn't sleep. Every noise in the house felt amplified. The heater switching on, a gunshot, the creak of floorboards, a body moving. He began to suspect his phone was tapped, his emails intercepted. Every click felt loud. Every passing car lingered too long. He barely left the house. But when he did, to buy groceries to refill his prescription, he felt eyes. A black sedan parked across from his house 3 nights in a row. A man with a hoodie staring at him too long. Nice. I neza ufrokras our store. Once, someone knocked on his door and vanished before he could open it. No package, no footprints. He tried to tell himself he was paranoid. Grief does that, so does guilt. But then he started noticing signs. Real ones. His mailbox was open when he hadn't checked it. His kitchen window was slightly cracked. He hadn't opened it in weeks. Margot's favorite book, Rebecca, was pulled out on the shelf. He hadn't touched it in years. And worse, someone had been in his basement. The door was ajar, the light still on. He stood at the top of the stairs one night, holding a hammer, heart thudding like a war drum. Nothing, no one, just silence. Always silence. A week later, he ran into Lily, Margot's childhood best friend. She still worked at the florist shop downtown. They hadn't spoken in years. She was colder now, thinner, sharper, like life had been unkind. You know, they think you did it. Right, she said, not even saying hello. Alex flinched. I used to believe that. She glanced around the parking lot, then lowered her voice. But then I got a phone call. A call, she nodded. A woman. She didn't say her name, but she sounded like Margot. Same breathy way of speaking, same phrasing. She said she was okay, and that you'd understand why she left. Alex felt like the asphalt beneath him tilted. When? 3 nights ago. 2 a.m. Lily looked suddenly afraid, and she told me not to tell anyone, that if I did, they'd come for me. That night, the footage disappeared from his email. Gone. No trace in his inbox, no backup in cloud storage. The file was wiped. Corrupted. All that remained was the memory of her face, Margot's, caught mid-step in the gas station video, smiling at something off camera, looking alive, unbruised, real. Alex now existed in 2 worlds, one where Margot had died horribly, and one where she was a ghost on surveillance tapes, sending breadcrumbs. But the noose was tightening. The police questioned his co-workers, neighbors. And then Nash returned to Oh, wait. This is searched his home. They took his hard drives to me. Or sooner. Even the basement lockbox where he kept their wedding photos. Alex watched them cart his life away with clinical detachment. You're not under arrest, Nash said, almost kindly. But you're not free either. If there's something you're hiding, now's the time. Alex didn't answer, because somewhere out there, Margot might be alive. And if she was trying to reach him and run from something else. The first night on the run, Alex slept in his car behind an abandoned chapel 2 towns over, shivering under a threadbare blanket and cradling a burner phone like it was a crucifix. His name and face were now plastered across every local news channel. Dr. Alexander Beck, person of interest in the reopened investigation of his wife's murder. Not suspect, not charged, but close enough. He couldn't risk going back to the clinic. His bank accounts had likely been flagged. The gas tank hovered just above empty, and he was already down to his last $200 in cash. He had nothing but a list, a name, a question he wasn't sure he wanted answered. What was Margot hiding? He started with Nate Langston, an old college friend of Margot's, more acquaintance than ally. Alex had always thought Nate was harmless, a little aimless, maybe a little too fond of Margot's company. But now, 8 years later, Nate lived off the grid, running a hacker-for-hire operation out of a rented trailer in rural Pennsylvania. It took 3 days to find him. Another half day to convince him to talk. Alex waited while Nate ran the surveillance footage, frame by frame, enhancing what little he could. He paused the video at the moment the woman, the Margot lookalike, entered the store and paid for something in cash. "She's good," Nate muttered, tapping the screen. No phone, no digital footprint, no eye contact, but this patch, he zoomed in on the sleeve of the hoodie she wore. That logo? Private Maritime Club, Elite, invite only, headquarters in Greenwich. Membership list isn't public, Alex stared. How do you even know that? I used to date a girl whose dad owned a yacht. You'd be surprised what rich people monogram. Alex's heart pounded. Greenwich, wealth, water. The puzzle pieces began to shift in his mind. Margot hated yachts, couldn't even handle paddle boats without motion sickness. So why was she wearing that? And then Nate pulled up another screen. You said your wife's maiden name was Fields? Yeah, Margot Fields. Why? Nate tapped a few keys. Nope, that's not her birth name. Alex blinked. What are you talking about? According to this, Nate rotated the screen. Margot Fields legally changed her name in 2008. Her birth certificate lists her as Marguerite Faulkner. Alex felt the breath leave his lungs. Faulkner. The name rang like a gunshot through his skull. A name he knew, but not from her. From the news. From scandals. From the Faulkner family. The Faulkners were old money. Connecticut royalty. Billionaire philanthropists with a long legacy of political donations, global charity work, and private lawsuits that never reached the press. And Alex remembered now, in 2009, a Faulkner heir vanished after a high-profile trial involving embezzlement, racketeering, and an offshore shell company laundering millions through fake foundations. The entire affair had been hushed up, the family's lawyers erasing digital footprints and burying any fallout under settlements. The missing heir's name? Marcella Faulkner, youngest daughter, alleged whistleblower. Disappeared shortly after testifying. No charges, no funeral, no body, only silence. And Marguerite, Alex couldn't breathe. Margot hadn't been a teacher's aide when he met her. She never talked about her past. He had filled in the gaps with the love-blind certainty of a man desperate to build a future. But now, he was married to a ghost. Every love note, every whispered dream, every tear, a lie. Nate watched him quietly. You okay? No, Alex said. But I'm starting to understand. He left that night with 2 burner phones, a prepaid credit card, and a list of names Nate had pulled from encrypted Faulkner family databases. Names of charity board members, lawyers, former staff, offshore shell directors. 2 names were crossed out. Deceased, the rest, still in the shadows. Alex followed the trail to upstate New York, then Boston, then a small private island retreat owned by the Faulkners. Sold off years ago, but still active under a shell corporation. At each stop he found whispers, bribed a security guard, lied to a receptionist, dug through municipal records at midnight with shaking hands. What emerged was something monstrous. Marcella, had been trying to expose something far more dangerous than fraud. The Faulkners had funneled money into covert operations overseas, arms deals disguised as humanitarian aid. Her testimony in 2009 had been redacted, but someone had leaked fragments to a journalist who died in a car crash shortly after publication. And then Margot vanished. Now Alex understood. She hadn't been murdered. She had escaped. But someone was trying to finish what had started years ago. Alex realized he was being followed again. Not by police this time, but professionals. One was waiting near a highway rest stop. Another pretended to drop his wallet outside Alex's motel. They weren't cops, no badges, no questions, just stares. And once, a message etched into the condensation on his windshield. You're next. The next breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Alex's old mentor at the clinic, Dr. Miriam Hesse, he called her from a payphone, desperate to hear a human voice that didn't want to cage or kill him. "Miriam," he said, hoarse, "it's me. I need to ask you something. Did Margot ever come to you toward the end?" Silence, then a breath. "I didn't think you'd ever call," she said. "She came to me 2 days before she disappeared." Alex nearly dropped the phone. "What? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because she swore me to secrecy. She was terrified. But I said if I told anyone, they'd come after me too." "Did she say who they were?" But she left something behind." Alex's heart nearly stopped. "A USB drive. I still have it. I never opened it. I didn't want to know." 2 days later, they met secretly under cover of night in the back of an empty veterinary clinic Miriam used for pro bono work. She handed him the drive like it was an organ transplant. He hugged her, not just for the information, but because she was the first person who didn't look at him like a villain. The contents of the drive? Encrypted files. One folder, unencrypted, labeled, "If anything happens to me." Inside, photos, bank accounts, wire transfers, audio recordings, names, dates, off-the-record interviews with victims, shell companies connecting the Faulkners to political donations, criminal organizations, and intelligence assets, and then a video. Margot, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. Pale, hair shorter, eyes wide. "Alex," she whispered, "if you're seeing this, I failed. I was trying to take them down from the inside. I didn't know who I could trust. I thought maybe if I disappeared, you'd be safe." A long pause. "I love you. Please don't come looking for me." She reached out as if to touch the lens. "I hope you believe me. I never stopped loving you. I just stopped being Margot." Alex shut the laptop, sat in the dark. He had no idea what was real anymore. His wife was alive. His wife was a spy. His wife had lied to him. Cerebral Orotic words or to protect herself, but if she was alive, someone else had planted the body or killed someone else in her place. And if they knew Alex was getting close, he was already a dead man walking. They met in a forgotten corner of the city, beneath a rusting overpass where trains passed without slowing. The air was damp with rain, and Alex's heart pounded so loudly it nearly drowned out the sound of her footsteps. She stepped out from the shower, brow alive. Older now, paler, hair shorter. There were lines around her eyes she hadn't had before, but she was real, flesh and breath and sorrow, the kind of sorrow you only carried if you'd buried yourself alive. "I didn't want to disappear," she said quietly, "but I had to." Alex didn't speak. Couldn't. He was still unraveling the fact that the woman he buried, mourned, had never been in that coffin. "I never meant for that body to be found," she continued. "She was a runaway. She looked enough like me. It wasn't supposed to go that far." "You used her," Alex said, voice raw. "You used me." "I tried to protect you," she whispered. The truth, finally laid bare, was darker than he'd imagined. Margot, real name Marcella Faulkner, had uncovered a vast criminal operation run by her own family. The Faulkners were laundering money through shell charities and funding armed conflicts under the guise of humanitarian aid. When she tried to blow the whistle, the retaliation was swift. Friends disappeared. A journalist died. So Margot did the only thing she could. She vanished. She'd watched Alex from afar, knew he was suffering, but contact was too dangerous for both of them. She'd left him a breadcrumb trail, not to reunite, but to bring the truth into the light, and it worked. The evidence she hid had taken down key members of the Faulkner network. Arrests were made, investigations opened. The story dominated headlines for weeks. When Alex turned over the files, his name was cleared. Official apologies were issued. But justice, Alex had learned, doesn't feel like justice when it arrives 8 years late. Now, Standing before the woman he had grieved, the relief was tangled with fury. "I thought I killed you," he said. "Do you understand what that did to me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you." He believed her, and yet a silence grew between them. Too much time, too many secrets. They sat side by side on the cold bench under the roar of passing trains. Not touching. "You still believe in the truth?" she asked finally. Alex stared straight ahead. "I believe in the cost." He didn't say goodbye when he left. Neither did she. In the final frame, Margot turns her face toward the empty space beside her. The camera lingers on her expression, not regret, not peace, but something harder to name, a question left unanswered. Was the truth worth it? Fade to black.